So how does Medicare work? And now I want to just add a little instruction here. We're talking about original Medicare only. If you have original Medicare only, we're not assuming that you have a supplement or an advantage plan or an employer plan or a retirement plan. This is just original Medicare. So what happens if you go into the hospital for 1 day up to 60 days? Medicare will pay the entire hospital bill after you have satisfied a $1,340 deductible. That is called the Medicare Part A deductible. Folks, I want you to be careful with that one, though. That is not an annual deductible. That is not a That is not a annual deductible. That is per eligibility period. And you can pay this more than once per year. So here's how an eligibility period works. It's 60 days. And the clock starts ticking when you leave the hospital. So let's say you go in the hospital on day 1, and you're in that hospital, say, for example, 5 days. You come out of that hospital on the 5th day. When you leave the hospital, the clock starts ticking on your Medicare eligibility period of 60 days. So if you go back into the hospital on that 61st day or after, guess what? You pay that $1,340 again. So that's not an annual deductible. It's per eligibility period, and you can pay that several times per year. But it pays for the first 60 days in the hospital, so it's not a bad deal if you think about it. 60 days in the hospital, $1,300, not a bad deal. Now, if you need to be in the hospital for more than 60 days, you fall down in here. And now for days 61 to 90, now you're going to pay $335 per day copay out of your pocket for every day that you're in the hospital. $335 copay out of your pocket per day. Now, folks, at day 90, your Medicare benefits technically end. But now you've got what's called your 60 lifetime reserve days. They're called lifetime reserve days because you only get them once in your lifetime. And once you use them, you don't get them back. And when you're in your 60 lifetime reserve days, now you're going to pay $670 per day copay for every day that you're in the hospital for days 91 to 150. $670 per day out of your pocket. And then at day 151, you're out of benefits. Medicare doesn't pay another penny. You are on your own until you leave the hospital. You stay out of the hospital for 60 consecutive days, and it starts all over again. Except now you've used up your 60 lifetime reserve days. So when you get to day 90, you're right back down here. Folks, if you find yourself down here in the red line, well, something pretty bad has happened to you. Something pretty catastrophic. We don't see a lot of people down here, although it does happen from time to time. Most people are going to be up here. Worst case scenario for a lot of people is they're going to pay that $1,340 2 or 3 times a year. But that's just the hospital bill. But what do we know about these things? We get home from the hospital. We get the hospital bill in the mail. What follows shortly after that? The doctor bills. Folks, you're going to get a bill from your surgeon, from your anesthesiologist, from the radiologist. Pretty much anybody that walked past your door while you were in the hospital is likely to send you a bill. Well, those bills are covered under Medicare Part B. And here's how Medicare Part B works. First of all, you pay $134 a month. After that, there is a $183 annual deductible. I'm going to try to write that in with my little pen here. $183 annual deductible. After you've met the annual deductible, then it's just an 80-20 split right down the line. Medicare pays 80% and you pay 20%. With no maximum, by the way. The plans that you're used to up until now have an out-of-pocket maximum. Sometimes it's called a stop-loss amount. Somewhere around $10,000 or $15,000 for most plans. But with original Medicare, there is no limit to the amount of money that you can pay out of your pocket. If your bill's $3 million, you're going to pay 20% of $3 million. But other than that, it's pretty cut and dry. $134 a month, $183 a year, 20% after that. But now there's a few different types of doctors we need to talk about. And the first one is a doctor who does not accept Medicare at all. And, you know, we don't really need to worry about those too much because you're just not going to see them. Unless that's your doctor now, you need to find out what's going to happen when you go on to Medicare. They're going to tell you one or two things. Either, yes, you can stay on because you're an established patient. I'm just not taking any new Medicare patients. Or they're going to tell you, no, I'm sorry, I don't do Medicare at all. I know you've been with me 20 years. It was nice knowing you. Here's a referral for the doc down the street. That doesn't happen as often. We do see it from time to time. Most times they'll allow you to stay with them because you're an established patient. But it is nice to know, and that's a question that you're going to have to ask your doctor, hopefully before you turn 65, so we can do some planning. Now, the other two, though, we do need to think about. And the first one of those is a doctor who accepts Medicare assignment. Now, a doctor who accepts Medicare assignment has an agreement with Medicare that says that they will just take what Medicare pays them, the 80%, along with what you pay them, the 20%. And if there's any excess, well, that excess is just written off. You don't get billed for it. Now, you all know what the excess is. You've seen your EOBs, your explanation of benefits from your insurance companies now. It shows this really high amount that the doctor billed, and then the next column in this equally ridiculous low amount that the insurance company approves. And the difference between those two is called the excess amount. So if that doctor accepts Medicare assignment, the excess just goes away. Okay, that's a doctor who accepts Medicare assignment. You pay 20% of the Medicare approved amount. Now, the last one is a doctor who does not accept Medicare assignment. A doctor who does not accept Medicare assignment does not have that agreement with Medicare. So they send the bill to Medicare. Medicare pays 80% of the approved amount. You pay 20% of the approved amount. And if there's any excess, well, that doctor is now allowed to bill you an additional 15% above the Medicare approved amount. That is called the Part B excess charge. So here's an example of how this works. Let's say that your doctor sends you for some outpatient surgery, and you go down to the little outpatient surgical center, and it's outpatient, so it's covered under Medicare Part B. And you get done, and you find out that that outpatient surgery center billed Medicare $12,000 for that surgery. They send that bill to Medicare, and Medicare says, yes, that surgery is approved. However, it's only approved for $10,000. Medicare will immediately pay their share of the bill, 80%, $8,000. You'll pay your share of the bill, 20%, $2,000, for a total of $10,000. But that leaves us with a $2,000 excess, doesn't it? Now, if that doctor or that facility accepts Medicare assignment, that $2,000 excess just goes away. You never hear about it again. You never get billed for it. But if that doctor or that facility does not accept Medicare assignment, they are now allowed to bill you an additional 15% above the Medicare approved amount, which in this case was $10,000. So you paid $2,000 here. Now you're going to get another bill for $1,500 here. Now I realize that still leaves us with a $500 excess, but by law, they're limited to 15%. That's called the Medicare Part B excess charge, and that's an important question for you to ask your doctors. Not only do they accept Medicare, but do they accept assignment or not? Because those last two doctors, folks, they both accept Medicare. One accepts assignment, the other does not, and the other one costs you an additional 15%. So can we agree that with Medicare alone and nothing else, you have a significant out-of-pocket risk? Is that a fair statement? So what do we do to protect ourselves from that risk? Well, we get ourselves a Medicare supplement.